Mach 3, give me crew show on 2, 3, and 4.
Line 1, X1.
6, 3. Mach 3, give me start, line 2.
511.
Mach 3, give me start, line 1, and crew show on 7 and 9.
Line 1, show 7 and on my thumbs.
Gotta do something. I hate that.
Super off, line 3, red ball, avionics.
Super Ops. The pilot is requesting avionics on the spot.
Okay, so today I'm joined by Eric Stromski, who's been on numerous episodes, including I think the very first episode we ever did for QA discussion, production discussion, compliance culture with Eric Stromski, leadership, you name it. Eric's probably been on an episode where I might have made an ass of myself, but I think I edited all those out. So welcome, Eric. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think some people might have thought the podcast died.
You took a pause for a while. Maybe that's what it was.
All right. Anyway, we're back. And today we're going to talk about the new Maintenance Duty Uniform, which is basically the Air Force's solution to coveralls. So we're just going to dive right in. And I guess let's start with what is the most basics, especially for those that don't work aircraft maintenance. What are coveralls, Eric?
Oh, so coveralls, exactly what they are, just like most mechanics in your maintenance career field. They're coveralls to cover your clothes, right? You wear them on the outside of your uniform, and supposed to keep you free, your uniform clean of just fuel, oil, dirt, grease, and grime, and all that nasty stuff you get on the flight line out there. And you're supposed to wear your uniform underneath your coveralls, minus maybe your blouse, so you have your pants and your boots. And they were most of the time supplied by the unit. And in my experience, you either got the blue ones, they had long sleeve, and you could tear the sleeves short, or they had those real thick, heavy green ones when I was at Luke.
Man, I love those green ones in the winter.
They were better than the blue ones, that's for sure.
Yeah, you get the bulkiest size you could get.
Yeah,
you're just stacking like thermal stuff underneath it.
Oh yeah.
And it also seemed like they were almost like more absorbent. Like some of those thin coveralls, like they would soak through so quickly that they were just like a road, like a speed bump for the whatever it is you were trying to keep off your uniform.
Yeah, it definitely depends on where you're working, or even in the back shops. I remember tearing down augmenters and opening those turkey feathers up. You know how nasty those get in there. And I would have to wear the long sleeve coveralls, and that was fine. But any fluid through those coveralls, the blue ones, it was your pants were toast, right? So,
and in my experience as somebody that wore coveralls for a long time, your coveralls typically get RTV or BHAF on them fairly quickly in their lifespan. And then it just becomes you're wearing a giant rag.
Basically, you're a walking rag. That's a good way
Correct.
to put at it. Yeah.
So I don't think it was necessarily required that you had to wear for a lot of people, especially in hot weather areas, it was like wear some shorts underneath it because you're trying to keep cool. Then you get the benefit of at least your skin's covered so it's not exposed to the sun, but also you're not hot wearing your uniform underneath it. You're getting some like airflow through it. And also like when you're working in very like with a lot of contaminants, jet fuel and hydraulic fluid, like I said, you almost don't want to wear your uniform underneath it because it's just going to soak right through and still ruin your uniform. And the whole point of coveralls, if I'm understanding correctly, is when you're working in an industrial area that's going to have like lots of dirt, grime, grease, petroleum products, whatever, that can destroy uniform, soak through. They want to save your uniform so you can wear the coveralls in lieu of your uniform. And then the coveralls get dirty. They can be dirty, easier to clean, easier to maintain. They're designed specifically for that exposure to those things. That's what it's made for, right? Does that sound right to you, Eric?
That's pretty spot on, if you ask me.
Okay. So, what problem does the new maintenance duty uniform solve?
Necessarily, I don't think there was a problem with the way the coveralls. We wore our coveralls, right? There was no real problem.
So how did coveralls work in practice? You would come to work.
Okay.
You would take off your uniform. You would have like gym shorts and like a sand t-shirt or whatever, like basically whatever the undershirt is that you would wear with your uniform. And you would put your coveralls on, and then you would work a full shift, and then you would go back in the locker room and change into your uniform and go home, right?
Right. So that's like 99% of people wore their coveralls. They would go to work in uniform. You'd have a formal roll call or stand up most places, right? I know when I worked at Test Cell, we did not have a formal roll call. We literally got out of our car in our shorts, put our coveralls on, and we'd wear a uniform once a week to the shop to do our formal stand up at the shop on Fridays. That's the only time we wear a uniform, really, when I was working at Test Cell. But typically, yeah, you show up to work, peel off your uniform, put on your coveralls, end of the day, back on, and then you go home, right?
Yeah.
So, that was it. But you know, like you said, there's certain places you couldn't go your coveralls, right? Like to me, the big problem with wearing coveralls was I need to run over to the BX or the main chow hall, right? Even the flight line chow hall, I believe, even at Luke, Holloman didn't have one, but Luke, you weren't supposed to wear your coveralls to the flight line chow hall.
Do you remember why? Do you remember why you weren't supposed to wear your coveralls to the flight line chow hall?
I think I was told one time it looked unprofessional because people were driving down that main road all the time.
Yep.
Right. And they said it looked unprofessional. That was, I believe, what I was told.
I was under the impression that you were bringing in carcinogens to a food service area.
That can't be it. They had the back door open to the flight line.
Yeah, but there's a difference between like exhaust coming in the back door and me coming in soaked in jet fuel, hydraulic fluid, and many other things and being like, let me get the undercooked chicken, please. Just kidding. I never said that, but I always got it. So,
oh god.
And you say, okay, you couldn't go to the BX in it, but again, like if you're needing to wear coveralls, your coveralls are going to be soiled really quickly,
without a doubt,
right? Or else you don't need them. It's almost like a chicken and egg thing,
right?
If you're not working in an environment that gets soiled, your coveralls stay clean. Going to places wouldn't be an issue because your coveralls will be clean. But if your coveralls are filthy, you shouldn't be going to the BX and the dining facility reeking of jet fuel and all these things, correct?
Right. I mean, if you're going to have clean, very clean, pristine coveralls, you're in a job that doesn't require you to wear coveralls.
And if you need coveralls, where can you go?
Right.
Okay.
Nowhere.
Okay.
So like, okay. So when this first came out, when this first popped up, that was my initial thought. Was like, oh, they're at least. So I remember at Luke, they actually changed that policy where you could go to the flight line kitchen if you're on the flight line side. Mm-hmm. So like if you're leaving the ramp and you were coming up in the expediter truck and they'd park in the back and everybody would file out and go get chow. If you were coming from the parking lot side and you were going to cross the street, you'd have to be in uniform because that parking lot in the street is not the flight line. Mm-hmm. So like that was kind of a win because everyone hated changing out of their uniform or their coveralls just to go to the stupid flight line kitchen, right? Now it was never allowed at the main dining hall, that's for sure. Like you can never do it. But my initial thought was, man, they're at least taking a step in the right direction. Whereas like, okay, if I have my coveralls on and I want to jet off somewhere for lunch or, I don't really get the time saving it does at the beginning of the shift or end of shift too much because to me, a few second change. But either way, I thought, oh, good for them. And then as you read through the reg, you're like, oh, it's got to be just like any other uniform, clean and serviceable, which automatically puts out your coveralls because none of your coveralls will be clean and serviceable, right? I mean, maybe the first week you have them, maybe you got lucky and you're, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what job out there doesn't require.
Okay, so also let's talk about what were the standards your coveralls had to be like? Was there a fit, finish? Did you have to have your name, rank, unit? Did you have to have identifiers?
All matured, right? So like when I first joined, there was no, you didn't have to wear anything on your coveralls. They were just coveralls, right? Then I believe, man, I forgot, maybe I was a staff. So like, I don't know, 6 years in. I think they changed it where you had to have the U.S. Air Force tape on your coveralls, and then it morphed into the Air Force, your name, and then your rank. And then everyone started arguing that if you had your name and your rank in your Air Force, now it becomes like a uniform. So why can't I wear it out if I'm going to if you're going to make me put all these patches on it? And I remember it being a big deal because the unit had to spring for the cost of getting the patches on. So like you'd go over to Mrs. Kim's and you get, give her the unit name, she'd write you down and she'd sew your shit on for you, right? So, and then, like I said, then they changed some rules where you could wear it certain places on the flight line or places connected. At Holloman, there was never, there was no any that you had to wear it either on the flight line or off. It was off, right? But like I don't remember if we really enforced the stripes.
So the stripes. So basically, there was no like clear Air Force wide guidance for coveralls. So it was left up to the individual installations to decide. So at Luke, it was eventually they standardized to you can get your sleeves done, and there was a lot of alterations you could do the coveralls, but those were basically decided by the installation. Which, when you're in Minot, you may not have like a short sleeve coverall sort of guidance. It'd be more of, when you're, I'm willing to bet if you're at Minot, you're wearing like the thick greens or some sort of thermal coveralls, which are more appropriate for that particular place. And then if you're in a hot climate, you're going to wear thinner stuff. Short sleeves might be dictated on what can be done, which I certainly remember short sleeves were one of the alterations that could be made. But I guess my thought is, have you ever worn your coveralls while working at the base auto hobby shop or working on your car?
I wore old coveralls.
Like, do you still have a pair now?
I have 2 pair.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, 2 pair.
I wear it whenever I do anything on my car.
Yeah, anything. I remember the only regulation that we had to follow for coveralls is they had to be serviceable, and that was always kind of a question because like some crew chief with his left leg just all tattered up over his boot or something like that, or a big old rip in the side, right? Like a tear or a hole or somewhere, it makes it not serviceable because it's not that barrier anymore, right?
Yeah.
You cut your coveralls most of the time came with the long sleeves, right?
Yep.
You cut your sleeve off, technically that would make it unserviceable, right? Like, but once again, that was also left up to, I guess, opinion, or who was your flight chief at the time, I guess, to enforce it. But I remember cutting the sleeves off and getting them sewn up and wearing them, all summer long there in the hot climates. But there wasn't much to go on the regulations for coveralls, like not much at all.
Yeah. So I guess if I'm a maintainer today and I'm moving from coveralls to the MDU, coveralls, I could take off my uniform, wear them at work, change out of them, go home, or if I have to run to the BX, change into my shorts or whatever and run to the BX and come back. Now I'm wearing the MDU, and if I want to go to the BX so if I'm wearing the MDU, do I keep a uniform at work? Because I know when I wore coveralls, I would always keep a uniform at work, like ready to go.
What's confusing to me, the whole thing, like I said, it's if you're wearing the MDUs and you're out there and you change an engine, right, and you get fuel dumped on them, and that's the only thing you wore to work because can you not wear them out because they're now covered in fuel, right? Or
they're talking about people going to like eating at restaurants.
But you're right. But like you would almost have to have a uniform at work just in case your coveralls became unserviceable during that
MDUs,
shift.
They're not coveralls anymore.
Or I'm sorry, MDUs. Yeah, my bad.
But that's the point. Like, you would have to not understand what coveralls are to think MDUs are a good idea, and to craft language that when you're eating at a restaurant in MDUs, the only time that works is if you're eating at a restaurant Monday before your shift starts.
Right. And like I said, you would have to keep a spare uniform or a spare set of MDUs at work on the flight line or wherever you worked in the maintenance shop, just in case. Because if I wear those MDUs out in the parking lot and I get in my car and I drive and go to the grocery store on the way home, or maybe go to the BX or the case, even walking from the unit to your car in the parking lot, like technically, the way they have it written, you can't wear that MDU if it's not clean and serviceable.
Here's the better
But did they
question:
use the word clean?
How many times would you get into your car, or how many times would you not want to wear your coveralls because you didn't want to soak your car in jet fuel, hydraulic fluid, or anything else?
My coveralls stayed in my locker the whole week. And then on Friday, I'd take them home and wash them, or it depends, I obviously wash them sooner if they need to be, but typically you get, 3 or 4 days out of use of coveralls, and they go home and get washed in Coke and, and whatever to get all the crap out.
Yeah.
And then, I think once every probably 3 months, I was getting a new pair of coveralls just because like the knees were completely worn out, or they come unserviceable so quick.
Yeah, they do. So
like fast.
I might be that I'm just not seeing this for what it is. I don't know how the MDU solves anything.
Well, like you asked before, what problem is it solving, right? And like, I feel like I think it's a step in the right direction, but I think this policy should be more governed locally than Air Force wide.
But that's what we were doing before. So it was better before.
Well, a little more lenient, right?
Right.
If I'm going to be in maintenance and I'm going to have on my coveralls and I have my name, my rank, and whatever else on them, and there's got to be a level of serviceability that I'm allowed to wear those things around base, right? Like, let's call it what it is. I'm going to go around base. It shouldn't be a problem. Everybody knows your maintenance. You got your hat on, whatever. You got your patches or your morale patches or whatever you have on there. On base, I think it should totally be allowed, and there should be a little more lenient on the serviceability or the cleanliness of it if you're going to be a maintainer. That's where I think it should be localized. If you leave base and you look like a dirt bag and you're representing the military, that could happen no matter what.
But here's the deal. All right. So if you're wearing an MDU, which has your name, U.S. Air Force, rank, patches, a hat, right? It's a uniform, and you've been working hard, and you leave. Are you not allowed to stop for gas? Aren't you going to look terrible if you get out of your car, assuming that your standards for the cleanness of your car are so low that you're going to sit your dirty ass on your seat and soak it in jet fuel? Like, that's what we're going to have to do.
So, yeah, all they did is make this a different uniform. That's it. It's just now a second uniform you can wear. You can't use them functionally as coveralls, though.
That's the point. That's what I'm getting at.
You can't. Right.
What's interesting is the regs still allow. So there's some real nuance here. Unlike a uniform that you have to buy at clothing sales with your uniform allowance, MDUs will actually be funded by the unit.
Right.
So how is that different from coveralls? It's not.
They're probably more expensive now.
Okay, they probably are. But it also says commanders can also have local coverall variants, right?
Right, okay.
So we still kind of retain the entire coverall benefit we talked about. So that's pretty cool, right? Except what happens in practice when you have a new maintenance duty uniform that comes out of squadron funds just the same as coveralls do, and it's the new hot thing in the Air Force. What's every commander going to do?
Yeah, they go out and snatch them all up, right?
And are they going to authorize coveralls?
No.
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 They're not.
They're going to get rid of the coveralls because we have these MDUs now.
Correct.
Right? And like the great thing about a coverall was not having to put all that shit on it, to tell you the truth, right? Like I didn't have to put name tape or rank on. I don't think I ever even did that. I might have done it towards the end. I don't remember. But to me, it seems so asinine that the coveralls can never be a uniform in the context of a uniform.
Because they're not meant to be, because they're meant to be unserviceable by definition. In order for a coverall to be needed, it needs to be unserviceable as its baseline, and it's only serviceable as far as soil's concerned in very rare situations. Very rare.
And the definition uniform, right? Everyone looks the same. Got it. Everything's uniform and the same, exactly the same. And that's fine too. You can still do that with the coveralls, right? You buy one set of coveralls. This is the only color, blue coveralls. That's it, all across Air Force or however you want to do it. But once again, there's always going to be local local dress codes or dictate something different based on your climate. But these can never be. It's like, I don't know what I call it. They can never be a uniform ever. You can't unless if you're that maintainer where you go out and you put these MDUs on and they stay serviceable to the point where you can wear them as a uniform, you're not doing your job as a maintainer.
And you don't need them.
Like, yeah, right.
That's the point.
I mean, you could work in the engine shop at EMB, right? And you wear a uniform. You'll never need coveralls or these MDUs, right? You work on the floor in the engine shop, you're going to need MDUs. And like, granted, the shop a little more clean than the flight line, right?
Yep.
So someone in the shop, they could get some maybe longer use out of their MDUs to wear in public because they're not trashed.
Yep.
However, on the flight line, I give it a week, right? If you're doing your job in the flight line.
Yeah, and I feel like a commander is going to defer to the MDU, and I think it's going to take a lot of effort to push them back to coveralls, because I think part of the coveralls was procurement through the resource advisor, through the supply system. And if I have a basic understanding of supply chain, which I probably do, when there's a high demand, there's a high production sort of supply. And then if every commander's like, oh, we got MDUs now, and they just fall off, a lot of those productive outlets are going to cease production, because that's a waste of, they're going to lose a bunch of money in that. So if commanders go to reach back to coveralls, they're going to find a very limited supply. So I would be surprised if any commanders reach back to coveralls, because they're basically going to end up getting locked in MDUs, even though they quote unquote do have a local coverall variability, or variants are allowed. I think it's going to end up not happening. And I think basically what we have done is we have created a coverall uniform that does not fix a problem that existed, that creates a heavier burden on maintainers for maintaining it, because now there's a bunch of things that has to be attached to it. I think that it is going to chase away the flexibility that coveralls allowed to local commanders. Also, the difference in materials, like I said, between Minot and Luke. Like, there's no way they should have the same coveralls at those two locations, right? It reminds me, I went to Korea and I had those like fur-lined insulated boots. I loved them, and I came back to Phoenix and I'm like, my feet are dying. I need to get some like breathable jungle boots. I got to get it. So we've created a uniform, and we've killed like a very good workaround that we have developed over decades for how to keep our uniforms clean. And it was, as far as I understood, it was working. That's also what I understand. It's not like there was a coverall failure that needed addressing. Like, I thought everybody was trucking along, doing great, changing their coveralls, going to work, and then going home.
There's a few things I wish we could know. One, I would love to see a set of these MDUs, right? Like,
we haven't gotten to appearance yet, but let's we can transition to that soon too. Go ahead. I wanted to save that for after the substantial conversation about function.
I would like to see. I also like to know if they're still allowed to wear coveralls, right? And if they have to wear these MDUs in lieu of coveralls. I think it's
going to be local coverall variants are still authorized. So if you had like local regulations for the wear of coveralls at your base level, if those stay, I think you can choose. But what I suspect is going to happen is when the MDUs drop and they're available, local places are going to rescind those coverall variant authorizations, because they're going to think there's no need.
You know, they had to have made this change based off feedback from some people. It has to be, right? Like, I can only, someone had to complain, or maybe maybe they did a focus group or something, you know. But like, okay, we're gonna get rid of hands in the pockets. Hey, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, hey, you can now talk on your cell phone. Like, you know, I mean, just normal
everyday
everyday
hats too. We've had that conversation about 37,000 fucking times.
I hate
stupid
hats.
As fuck that I'm like a 40-year-old man stressing out about a hat. It's stupid. Anyway,
it's so bad.
So fucking dumb. Anyway,
but maybe, you know, this is part of that. Like, you know, look, Air Force have to change, right? As times change, you can't stay stuck in the past. You know, and that's apparent. That's why I say they're taking a step in the right direction. It seems like they're, you know, I would like to know how this whole change came about. Like, you know, who started it? You know, like there's the beard page, the Air Force, you know, or the beards in the military. Like
Yeah.
that's a step in the right direction to me. Like if they were to
1000%.
make some kind of policy change on that, right? This I don't understand where it's coming from. I don't understand the need for it. I don't really think we had a problem with that, and I don't know what you're saving.
So here's what I think.
What you're saying.
And I have no great insight here besides my lived experience. I think somebody that did not come from maintenance thought this would be a good idea. And then they asked at a high level, right? And then they asked a maintainer in the office next door that was at a high level. And the way that maintainer got to a very high level was by saying yes to every idea a supervisor ever fucking had. So when this non-maintainer walks into the maintainer cubicle and goes, I think there should be a maintenance duty uniform, I think the guys would really like that out there. It'd be very helpful for them to be able to go to the BX in this uniform. This yes man maintainer was like, yeah, absolutely. I could totally see that.
Let's take the pilots in there, and they, everyone's like, oh, the pilots got to wear their flight suits around, right? Or maintainers when they're working on heavy stuff, they wear their flight suits. Thunderbirds, they got to wear their different that's tailored for their job, right? And like, let's call it what it is. Working on the Thunderbird jet. Granted, once you're doing heavy maintenance, it's not going to be any cleaner than normal. But just doing a walk around on an F-16, do it on a normal F-16, doing a walk around, right? You're going to get filthy. Doing a walk around on a Thunderbird jet, you're probably not going to get filthy, right?
I'm also willing to bet. I'm willing to bet a lot of money. I'll ask some of my Thunderbirds friends. I bet they have different uniforms for whether they're for show out in public or whatever, or at 3 a.m. they're pulling a JFS. They wear different ones because they don't want to soil the one they're going to be out in. And that dirty one stays in the locker. It's coveralls. That's the answer. We had the solution and somehow we fucking fumbled it.
Heart's in the right place, I think, Air Force, with maybe trying to change some whatever reason it was, but it was terrible. It was bad.
So now let's talk about what they look like.
Oh God. Do we have to?
Yeah, I'll post a picture on the page too. So when I first saw this, it was like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 months ago, I think I first saw this. And I immediately leapt to the Dominican actors in the episode of Seinfeld when they're pretending to be Cubans.
When they're rolling the cigars, right?
It looks like a Fidel Castro getup.
It's so bad.
And then and also it's with a hat. And you really got to just wonder, when are we going to abandon the hat? Because if these are meant to be worn in an industrial area, what percentage of the time is this uniform going to be paired with a hat? And then you need to ask yourself, why do we need hats anymore? I feel like that's a conversation for another podcast, or maybe there isn't enough bitching about hats for it to be its own podcast. It's really simple. Hats are fucking stupid to be required. That's the beginning of the podcast. And I'm going to do a 15-second fucking podcast. It's going to be more intro and outro than content. It's going to be hats in the Air Force. Oh, this one's weird. It's a minute and 47 seconds long. Let's see what Chris has to say about hats. Oh, he says hats are fucking stupid.
You should challenge your listeners, right? I want to hear someone pro hat. I would like to hear a pro hat argument. I can't think of one I can't possibly think of one.
Like, I'm pro optional hat. I'm pro hat when you're on the flight line with like a boonie hat and you're trying to keep from getting skin cancer.
Right.
Or it's cold outside and you're wearing a watch cap. Or I just can't get past, it's a normal day. You're dressed in a good looking uniform and you get out of your car and you're like, oh shit, I forgot my hat. And it's you and 50 feet and then the doorway to your building. And you're like running through the scenarios in your mind of what happens if my chief sees me? What happens if a junior airman sees me? I'm setting a bad example because I'm not respecting. That is stupid. It is stupid. There is no amount of enemy satellites that are going to be fooled that you are a walking bush. I can't understand it. I'm not saying get rid of hats. I'm saying get rid of the requirement to wear hats. Make them optional. And like, when we were stationed at Holloman, we saw a lot of foreign military.
No hats.
They had beards and no hats. You know what? They could fucking maintain jets just the same.
The only hat I liked was the black ones with the the squadron patches on it. They were like ball caps.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And those are fine to me. Yeah, I got some hanging in my garage. Like those are fine to me.
Yeah, those are all right.
Once again, being forced to wear some, and just like these MDUs, right? Like you're not really forced to wear them, but I just don't understand why anybody would. Why would you?
Here's what's going to happen: these MDUs, they're going to be hung up in the locker. People are going to come into work in their shorts or uniform. They're going to change in MDUs. They're going to go out to the line. They're going to get filthy. They're going to pack them up and put them in the locker. They're going to go home in their shorts and or their uniform.
Yeah, it won't solve anything. I mean, you may, right? So you may in a situation where like they're dirty. There's oil stains on them. There's fuel, and you wear them out, and maybe nobody says anything to you, right? Because they know if you're wearing those, they should know you're a maintainer. Like that's it. Now, what level of maintenance you do, that's a different story, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're also going to get that stick in the mud chief, that beat up master sergeant, that pissy staff sergeant that's going to just hem someone up because their MDUs are considered unserviceable because
Dude,
they're dirty.
I could not wait. If this was me, I would walk into finance. I mean, assuming their door is open, so that's not a realistic scenario. I would walk into, go to my dental cleaning.
Oh.
And I would just be, like they would get cancer from that appointment.
Just smelling it, just whoo.
They're like, oh, I got some sort of hearing loss from smelling all this jet fuel. I don't know what's going on. And I'd be like, yeah, bro, it's the MDU. It's the way it is. Welcome to the flight line. Welcome to the site.
Right. Let me bring a little flight line to your office.
But going back to the appearance, so they look awful.
The color's terrible. I think the design, they look baggy as shit. Like, granted, the pictures probably weren't. I don't know. I don't think you can get them tailored too much. Like, I'm not sure what the functionality. Maybe there's hidden pockets and shit in there. But once again, I don't want my guys in the flight line to have pockets. I really don't.
No.
Maybe one up here. That's about it for your pens and pencils and shit. Whatever. Yeah. But they're hideous. Some people, I wonder, they're not received well, as far as I can tell.
No, nobody wants them.
Well, they look like if I were to puke and make the color into an MDU, that would be it. One F-15 maintainer said. One guy said, had to go with the janitor gray. And everyone sentiments exactly what we've been saying, right? They very quickly become unserviceable or worn out.
Have you ever, here's a question, Eric. Have you ever, especially working on the line, because I know you were an engine trooper, you did a lot of time on the line as well. I think it was like 61st, 62nd, 311th. What's it like going to a resource advisor and trying to get new boots?
I think it depends on the resource advisor sometimes, but like when they ask you, let me see your boots, or when was the last time you had a pair, right? And like the fact that you're leaving that up to someone to remember, like, these are still good. So what I hated about it was they would look at the tread on the boots and say, oh, these are still serviceable. You don't need new boots. It's not the tread that wears out. It's the cushioning inside the boots. It's the cushioning inside the boots. So like I work for Amazon and we even worked at Panasonic. Every single year they pay up to like $150 for a new pair of steel toe shoes. And when I talked to the safety guy, once again, he said it's not necessarily the tread wears out because some of these people barely spending time on their feet. It's the cushioning on the inside. So like that's what leads to back problems and everything. And now granted, your tread should be good because the flight line you're slipping and so, but for a resource advisor to say, oh, well, your tread still looks good, or it's only been like 18 months since you had a pair of boots, these are still good, or we don't have any money for boots. What? That drives me crazy. Like, how can we not have
they would make you do a 1-for-1 swap? You had to give up your old boots to get new boots?
Yeah, what if you were wearing your old boots?
I was. Like, those boots I had in Korea, which were great, but they were burning my feet up. They were super comfortable, and they're great in winter. I went in I was like, I need some jungle boots. These are just too hot. They're like, okay, well, here's what size here you go. All right, give me those boots. I'm like, no, these are my boots. I have them. He's like, well, you can't get new boots until you give up your old boots. Because the idea is they don't want you hoarding boots because, as we all know, in a post-apocalyptic world, boots are going to be the new form of currency, kind of like dirt in fucking water world, I guess. Oh, check out Johnny. He's got 37 fucking pairs of boots down the way. He's going to get some turnips from the Johnsons.
So I never understood, being in maintenance, why somebody who worked in dental or I can even understand someone working in like the chow hall or something, but I don't know about you, but my boots, I was issued the black boots, and most airmen aren't going to go out and spend $80 or $120 on a pair of show boots.
Yep.
They're just going to wear what's given to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like back when the black boots they had to be polished, clean and polished. That was damn near impossible to keep those things looking good.
I spent a lot of time. I tried to keep up for it. I spent hours per week trying to keep up on that. I had to give up.
And so when they switched to the Sage boots, right, and they made those stupid suede or felt or whatever they were on top, like how can you tell someone like, and your uniform in general, right? Even if you have coveralls on, you're as a maintainer, your uniform is going to go to shit a lot faster. Hence, somebody in the chow hall or dental or wherever, they're getting the same annual clothing allowance as someone who works in the flight line. You got to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me. My uniform, my boots, you get one pair. Here you go. You go out there, and the next day you're on your hands and knees doing an engine change, and you drag your toe across, and your whole leather scuffed off the front of your boot. Now that boot's unserviceable. Where do you get another pair at? Well, you can't go to the resource provider because he just gave them to you, right? Got to go spring out of your own pocket, but you only get clothing allowance once a year, so hope you have money to save over from that.
So what was the way the Big Blue balanced that someone in dental and someone on the flight line is going to go through uniform items, at a much different speed? The answer was, you'll get boots issued to you by your resource advisor, and we're going to give you coveralls so you can wear that in lieu of a uniform, and that can get dirty, and that's fine because it's supposed to get dirty.
Right.
So now we've developed the MDU, which is supposed to be paid for by squadron funds. But what happens when you burn through an MDU in 3 weeks?
Do you think it'd be the exact same as the coveralls, right? Like if you needed coveralls, and once again, like we could talk Air Force funding and all the buckets that money is allocated to, but there was never a plethora of items available, right? And like, granted, if your boots, like, you shouldn't have to beg. Like, look at the tread in the bottom of my boots; it's worn down to nothing. Like the heel's completely worn down. Oh yeah, okay, you can get some boots, right?
Have you seen America's airmen at work wearing a garbage bag where they poke a hole in it for their head to come through because there's not enough money to give them rain gear? Yeah,
people sharing, like, oh, you were overseas and I got this extra stuff, because sometimes when you go overseas, they give you everything you need for some reason, right? You come to stateside and you got to beg, borrow, and steal for shit.
In Korea, I see people walking to work wearing a trash bag because it was like torrential downpour and they got no rain gear. I certainly remember, like, one of my last positions, the chief was like, no, they don't get Apex, they don't get windbreaker Apex jackets. And it's like, they need this.
Do you remember at Holloman when we had no cold weather gear for these people that were coming from Luke? Because Holloman is twice as fucking cold as Arizona, and that wind blows through that valley there, and you just freeze your balls off. Chief Bradford, he authorized people to wear whatever they had to stay warm. There was some guy out there in his Oakland Raiders, might have been Jim Brown, I don't know, maybe, in his Oakland Raiders gear, right? Like, I walked in, I'm like, what's going on here? Oh, Chief said we need to wear whatever we could to stay warm. And I actually applauded him. Like,
yeah, that's the fucking right call.
Right, without a doubt.
If you don't resource me to take care of my people, I'm going to fucking let them adjust, because them having warmth to do their job is more important than them being uniform in their misery. It's not even a fucking complicated thing.
Anything that comes to safety, and like the two jobs that has been out, safety it's everything, right? There's vending machines filled with safety gear, gloves, vests, these like kind of box cutters that, you can't really cut yourself on or anything. It's all about safety, right? So like, my coveralls are unserviceable. It's a safety thing. Like, you're not being protected.
Well, hold up. That's because on the outside, the company is subjected to OSHA, and they can be sued if someone gets injured and they don't have the proper safety equipment. So
that's a good point.
Can OSHA regulate the military, and can someone who is not given the right safety equipment in the military sue the military for a negligent action?
Good question.
The answers to both of those are no.
Well, OSHA can't dictate anything. For
the military, no,
nothing at all.
We have AFOSH standards where they've tried to codify OSHA standards into the military, but OSHA as an organization, they can't go and fine the military.
Okay, good point. Well, I mean, you signed the dotted line, I guess, right? Did you know that when you signed?
That's a great point. I didn't know I could be treated with utter negligence with no accountability. I was barred from any suits against the people that were negligent to me. I had no idea.
Nope, no one does.
And I also didn't know I wasn't allowed to speak out against it either. What a fucking shit deal that was. Okay. I guess I've been struggling. I struggled when I brought up the topic with you, and I struggled through this episode. I'm trying to see the benefit here. I guess the benefit is if the unit has a lot of MDUs available, this would be not bad. Where you have like so many you can change every day that as soon as they're unserviceable, you can turn them in and get them quick turned. Then you're just basically to a bunch of coveralls is what I see. In which case that might be a good thing. I mean, you still can't go to the BX if you're soaked in fuel. But,
I mean, it just, once again, it contradicts itself.
Right. If you need coveralls, that means you can't go other places. If you need MDUs, if your occupation needs an MDU, then by definition, if you need an MDU, you can't go other places in your MDU because it's going to be unserviceable and soiled. That's what I'm left with.
Yeah. And like even the term, dirty or soiled, once again, that could be subjective depending on who's looking at it. But I mean, first of all, like I said, there was no problem to fix in this whole situation. Secondly, you make this uniform that great, hey, I get maybe it's a step in the right direction. Maybe you had like I said, a focus group or something, and you're trying to make these changes, but like the basis behind the change is Swiss cheese, man. Like there's holes all over the place in this thing, right?
Yep.
And so how much money is going to be wasted on this program before it gets ditched? Or, I don't know. I can't see it sticking around for long.
Here's what I'll say. Whatever person thought of this and brought it to a maintainer to sanity check it, you need to go back to that maintainer and be like, hey, you were supposed to tell me this idea was fucking stupid. What are you doing? Like, that's why I went to you, was because I needed to make sure this wasn't a dumb idea before we push it out to the entire Air Force. So someone lied to you, whoever you are, and you need to go have a conversation with them.
You should start attaching polls to when you release your podcast to see like, all right, I want to know how many are for the uniform or likes or dislikes. Cause like, I'm really genuinely curious how many maintainers are actually for this change or think it's going to be a positive one.
Yeah, I can't. And again, this could be just a blind spot for me where I can't see. Maybe there's something like really fucking good about them. You know what? I'll tell you what. If somebody ends up bringing up a point, and I've asked around and I haven't found any, but if somebody brings up a point that I overlooked here, what makes these things really valuable and good, fucking call me the fuck out. I will bring it up on a subsequent episode and be like, boy, I felt dumb. Revisit this episode because I put my foot in my mouth because these MDUs are fantastic.
Well, once again, like we're a little far removed from the maintenance days.
Yeah, but we're not fucking wrong about this, right? We're not fucking wrong.
Even if you had hardcore evidence, I probably would still change my mind.
Be like, oh shit! After 52 episodes, Chris became a fucking Blue Falcon. All right. Well, is there anything else? So I guess my recommendation in this situation, if I was SecAF, that's how you in my podcast now, kind of like if I was SecAF for a day, what do I do?
Yeah,
I would resend this bitch so quick. I'd kick it back down the installation and be like, go back to coveralls, period.
Yeah. Go back coveralls, make it local. I mean, once again, you can make all kinds of changes. I'm going to allow coveralls to be worn to the BX only, or to the finance office, or, certain areas on base. So because once again, that does save time, especially when you're, hey, I got an appointment, Sergeant McGee, I got to be there at 9:00. All right. Well, I need you to work up until like 8:50. So I'll give you 10 minutes to get out there. If all you got to do is grab your stupid hat on the way out the door and jump in your car, once again, there would have to be a level of...
Yeah, you can't be soiled. That's the whole point.
Yeah. I mean, once again, that's a level, right? Like you get some, you get some grease on your knees or, maybe a little fuel stain or something like that. A lot different than 2 weeks worth of wearing without washing your shit, right? Big difference, right? I mean, it could be clean, but a stain doesn't mean it's soiled necessarily.
How many?
Right?
Here's a question. Maybe this is where I'm falling through. How many pairs of coveralls did you have at any given time?
Oh, I'd say about 3.
I have like 1, maybe 2.
But once again, I ran into a good resource advisor. Like I always had a pair at work, 2 pairs at work, right? I'd wash one and have one at home. And then I always had one, like you said, that third pair when I was working on my cars and shit. But if I had to wear that in a pinch, I would, right? Because you know as well as I do, people fuck with your coveralls when you leave them out. Like I've lost a couple pair due to shenanigans, right? So like that's that's for a different time. But
all right, so if you could wave a magic wand,
yep,
what would you do?
Without a doubt, I would go back and I would rescind the shit out of this. I would allow coveralls, and it would have to be up to base discretion to be worn around the base facilities, right? And like there would have to be some kind of, obviously you'd have to have some kind of level of, you can't just say clean and serviceable, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can say serviceable, but it would be, maybe up to the unit to decide what that is. I mean, most people have common sense. I can tell you what serviceable is. I can tell you what clean is. But because I have a stain on my coveralls, doesn't mean they're not clean. It just means the fuel stain in my coveralls.
Yep.
They're clean. They smell like Tide laundry detergent, right? There's just a stain. But I'm on base.
So how much money would it cost, instead of making MDUs, how much money would it cost for the Air Force just to put out a memorandum to installation commanders to, hey, I want you to increase base access for people in coveralls?
Right. Oh, the cost would, the person you pay to write it.
Yeah.
How much time they spend writing it. Like that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Right.
You're already paying for coveralls now.
Yep.
And like you said, and now the MDUs, so like the name tapes,
yep,
the patches,
yep,
does the unit supply all that?
You either have to,
right?
Yeah.
Where do we get all this extra money from? They weren't doing it for your regular uniform, were
like
they?
They literally spent more money to have a worse product.
Are you shocked by that?
Yeah, I guess. All right, Eric.
All right.
Thanks for coming on here and trying to, I don't know, help me figure out why these aren't pieces of shit, I guess.
You're when you asked me the initial question when you text me, I was, I'm trying to think of the problem to solve, and I'm like, we just created another problem, like more of a problem than I think it's going to solve. Once again, I don't think there was ever a real problem. I'm 20 years or 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, whatever it was, I was wearing those coveralls. Never really had a problem, right? No one ever asked to see, hey, are you wearing your pants underneath those? Like, nah, no one really cared, right? I mean, but I would allow some more base freedoms for the maintainers. And you could be a little stricter, like if you want to put the stripes on and stuff like that. But I wouldn't turn it into this. I'll tell you that.
And I'll tell you what, I think we laughed a lot in this episode, and I think it's because they're stupid. But what does this look like when it's implemented? What it looks like this is what it looks like. No shit and any maintainers that have gone through this, correct me if I'm wrong. What's going to happen is a shitload of MDUs are going to show up at each installation, and all of a sudden, your coveralls you've been wearing for 10 to 15 fucking years, or all of a sudden, now that there's MDUs in stock, everyone's going to be freaking out about getting MDUs on you in your possession. There's going to be a heavy lift to get all the name tapes made, the stripes made, sizing. There's going to be too much of one size, not enough another size. There's going to be mix and match. People are going to be wearing this, going to be chasing it. And at some point, there's going to be a hard stop when coveralls aren't authorized, and someone's going to be freaking out trying to get MDUs. And you know what? Every Air Force leader, every maintenance leader should be trying to remove stress and burden from maintainers. What they have to do is so fucking difficult just at a baseline. And to introduce a brand new thing with new requirements, and there's going to be some ate-up motherfucker that's going to be pushing it sooner rather than later, and creating by the way, the military, they create deadlines that don't actually fucking matter all the time, and they make people stress over missing it. All those people that do CBTs the 15th of the month prior to when it's due, same shit. Just imagine it's amplified across the entire Air Force for MDUs. In practice, it's going to be terrible.
Who do you think is going to wear these? Can you see that expediter on the truck who probably doesn't do a lot of maintenance?
It's going to be fucking PMEL. It's 1,000% it's going to be PMEL.
Let me ask you this. If you're the pro super on the flight line, Matt Sergeant, are you wearing these?
Yeah, because I am probably 8 up, and I want to make senior, and I want to, and there's going to be some asshole senior above me to be like, you need to be a good example, so you need to wear these and, support this change because that's what we're all put. Yeah, of course.
So you can see a bunch of flight chiefs, and you work maybe work in the commander's office, right? You're a support staff for the commander. Are you wearing them?
Well, it specifically says it has to be not be utilized for office work environments. So back in the day,
Oh, does it say that? Okay.
Yeah. So back in the day when the whole blues thing came out, when I was a section chief, I was like, does this mean I need to wear blues? Like, well, no, we expect you to be on the flight line on Mondays or Fridays, whatever the blues days was. So you need to be in your duty uniform. If you're a flight chief, and you know as well as I do, I was a pretty active flight chief. Like I would go out and look over pre-flights and look over engine bays and work impounds and do engine runs and things. I still wouldn't want to take these because there's people that need it way fucking more than me.
Yeah, true. Like you wouldn't wear coveralls as a flight chief unless you were working, maybe.
Yeah, I wore coveralls when I would do some work, like impounds. I would typically, and I enjoyed it because it
Right.
liberated me from a fucking uniform. I didn't have to worry about all these things.
God.
Anyway,
Best feeling wearing those shorts and those coveralls.
yeah. All right. Well, we're out of time, but thank you, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Adios.